Hey everyone, it's William on a cold, wet October day, the last October day, 31st. Happy Halloween, the 31st of October 2024. It's 10 degrees here, and where Dmitri's at Ilyinskoye on the 14th of October 1907, it is 4 degrees, so a little colder. And let's see, in the last diary entry, they had just arrived at Ilyinskoye on the Saturday. So today we have a Sunday, that was a Saturday, and Dmitri had made reference to where they were staying, maybe what apartments they were staying in, either within the manor house of Ilyinskoye or the manor house of Usovo. Yeah, so I still haven't figured that one out. One was called Kin Grust and the other Milovidya, and it was Aunt Ella who decided where they would be staying, and Dmitri was not thrilled with her choice. But I wasn't even sure if she had come on this trip. But today we do have confirmation that she was there, that she was part of this little trip. Okay, so let's dive in. Today I got up at 7:30. Then I went for a walk. The weather was cold and miserable, devil take it. Coffee at 8 o'clock, and then we went to liturgy. Liturgy was held in the new church, i.e. in the renovated church. Afterwards, Tjotja and I went to the maternity ward where the Ochreman child was baptized. As soon as we got home, we went hunting and stayed out until 3. It was a frightful bore, cold, and there wasn't a single rabbit. We also had lunch there, made a fire, and refreshed ourselves with food and warmed ourselves by the fire. Maria left after that because she was terribly cold, and the doctor, cook, GM, and I stayed, but we didn't get anything. Back at the house, we sat downstairs and also messed around upstairs, but one couldn't say it was particularly fun. Dinner was at 8 o'clock, after which we sat around and played Tjotka. It has been decided that we will leave quite early tomorrow on the 8:45 train so that I'll be on time for my lesson at 10 o'clock. It's a wonderful night, even though it's 4 degrees. Tomorrow will probably be splendid, and today it was bad, as if on purpose. I'm glad I'm leaving. 10:30 p.m. Okay, some interesting things in this one. Yeah, beginning with my my two colleagues in Russia informed me recently that Ilyinskoye, so the manor is no longer there. There is a little museum there nearby, in the vicinity, I should say, but she said there's very little about Dmitri in the museum, unfortunately, because it's really dedicated to Grand Duke Sergei and to Ella, and that part of the entire estate, the Usovo Ilyinskoye estate, is now completely cordoned off from the public because it is part of one of Putin's palatial homes, and so of course it's behind a wall and there's tons of security, so that's unfortunate. But anyway, yeah, they have coffee at 8 o'clock, which means that they weren't receiving the Eucharist, they weren't taking communion, or else of course they would not have had coffee. That would not be allowed. They go to this renovated church, and afterwards Ella and Dmitri go to clearly to stand as godparents for a child who's being baptized. And it sounds like the child is actually being baptized in some kind of little country hospital, village hospital or something, in the maternity ward. Not sure what Dmitri means by that. It would be unusual. because the baptism usually came 40 days after the child was born. But it may have been, as was the case with Dmitri himself, that the child was sick, or there was some question as to whether it would survive, and so the baptism was done right there in that instance. And I think it very often happened that members of the imperial family would stand as godparents to the children of members of their staff or the villages where their estates were. I don't think that was at all uncommon. And it's also the case in the Orthodox Church. I don't know about the Roman Catholic Church, but in the Orthodox Church, it's not ideal to have a family member be the godparent. It happens, of course, but it's not considered the gold standard or the ideal. And it's a relationship that's taken extremely seriously, that you are supposed to be literally the spiritual guide for this child, and that becoming a godparent makes you part of the family. So you're a part of the extended family, and you're a particularly venerated part of the family, and it really is, you really are accountable to God for that child's spiritual well-being. And of course, this is on paper, or this is the tradition, as it were, but it's not usually the reality. And I can say that, on my own part, because I have 7 godchildren, and I certainly haven't lived up to that ideal. But yeah, it's separate from the idea that we sometimes have in the U.S. of a godparent as someone who will be the legal guardian of the child if the parents, for some reason, God forbid, are killed. And that's not it at all. It's more of a spiritual relationship. And in the Greek church, a godfather is nuno, godmother is nuna. I don't actually know what the word for it is in Russian. That's rather shameful on my part. And it's such a big responsibility, indeed, that you're not supposed to ask anyone to be the godchild, the godparent of your child. You're supposed to wait until somebody offers. And in fact, I'm told that in Greek villages, I don't know, up to what time period, sometimes a baby would be put down in the narthex of the church, and the first person who came and picked the baby up would then be the godparent. And of course, the baby wasn't, there were parents within eyeshot. The baby wasn't just left there, while the parents went off and had coffee or something. And presumably people knew that if you found a baby on the ground in the narthex of the church in a cradle or something, if you picked it up, that was a commitment. And the godparent also has the absolute right to determine the name of the child. So with my godchildren, of course, I always found out in advance what name it was that the parents desired, or in the case of an adult, what name they wanted. And didn't, if I had said at the last minute, given the priest the name, I don't know, any name, you fill in the name, why am I having this brain glitch? I don't know. Then that would have been the name. That would have been the Christian name, however the parents felt about it. But of course, I never did that, and I don't know anybody who does that. Okay, and sometimes, the other way around. For instance, that Tsarevich, that Alexei, I think he was all of the soldiers of the Russian army, something like that, were named as his godparents. And obviously this isn't something that a priest would approve of. So what the actual practice is and what the priests approve of, those are sometimes two different things, and especially when you're dealing with the imperial family. So, for instance, every little Grand Duke or Grand Duchess or Prince or Princess had multiple god parents, some of whom weren't even Orthodox. And for an ordinary Orthodox Christian, that would simply not be allowed. If I had a child that was about to be baptized, I couldn't ask my friends from other faiths, let alone a whole group of them, to come and be the godparents to the child. But, you know, if you are royalty, then certain allowances are made. Okay, so moving on from that, they go out hunting. I thought they were probably hunting for birds, but it turns out it looks like they were hunting for rabbits. And they have this little this lunch outside around a fire, and Maria, who can't handle the cold anymore, so she goes home. And I would have gone with her. I have to say, I'm not a person that likes the cold unless it's really dry air. Then sometimes it's quite bearable. But anyway, she goes home, and the guys stay behind, at least 4 of them, the cook, GM, Dmitri himself, and then this person who's simply referred to as the doctor. So if we assume, as I do, that it was a medical doctor, the question is then, why was he accompanying them? Who was he attached to? Was it Ella, who'd been in poor health? So quite possibly her. If it was Dmitri, I mean, that's possible because of the circumstances of his birth and the fact that he was a 7th-month baby. There was always a certain amount of anxiety, of sort of residual anxiety around him. So that's a possibility that there was a doctor as part of the household, but my guess would be that it was probably Ella's doctor. Now, what's interesting about this is that there's no mention of Wilhelm. So I had the understanding that the trip was sort of for him, and that they were going to set up his own enclosure for him to hunt from, and they were bringing Grand Duke Sergei's gun with them, whether it was a rifle or a shotgun, for him to use. But Dmitri just completely leaves him out when he's otherwise being quite detailed about who was there and who stayed and who went back to the house. So what the heck? Did Wilhelm say, it's too cold, I'm not going out today? Doesn't seem likely. He was from Sweden, for God's sake. They weren't used to balmy weather there. Okay, so anyway, I don't know what to say about that. So then they're back at the house. Dmitri isn't in the greatest mood. He's not really enjoying himself. They play this game called Tyotka. So you know from my use of the word Tyotya that that's the Russian word for aunt. So if you add the K ending, Tyotka. So for instance, you could do that with the diminutive for Dmitri. You could say Mitka instead of Mitya, and it's sort of more intimate, but it's also a little bit joking. It's also a little bit I can't say pejorative, but you wouldn't dare use that with someone that you weren't really on very close terms with. But what it means in relation to this game, I mean, I tried to find it, like, what is this, old maid or something like that? And I found a variety of things online that had the word Tyotka, and one game that they had translated as the scary teacher. And so I don't know, but they were playing this, whether it was a board game or a card game or something else, and then planning to leave early in the morning because Dmitri had school, and his first lesson would be at 10 o'clock, and he needed to be back in time for that. So, not even Grand Dukes can simply wave their hand in the air and say, I'm changing my schedule, I guess, or I'm skipping school today, or whatever. So I'm glad I'm leaving, he says. Well, yeah, he's not in a great mood, and it was kind of a rush trip and the weather is bad, so I guess that's understandable. Anyway, come back next time. I'm going to just push right through these, and then we'll go back and really give our full attention to the 1921 diary entries. I think that's better. The next diary entry, the one for the 15th, the Monday, is actually quite a long one. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in one part instead of in two, but we'll see. And yeah, so that's it for today, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye.